Welcome to this webinar session titled Bridging CUI and GUI. In this session, we'll have a look at a case study of a company that's taken advantage of BASIS tools to convert their applications from CUI to GUI and also integrate their GUI applications with the new Barista tool. We're going to have a look at the AddonSoftware modules, the old version 6, which is a character-based version of the product, as well as the Barista add-on version, which is entirely GUI. And the company that we're going to consider as the case study is BASIS International. Let's have a look at the agenda for the day. We'll review BASIS's internal systems, have a look at the infrastructure, the deployment choices that BASIS have implemented, and look at the components of the business application in use daily at BASIS International. We'll have a look at how one moves from Pro 5 to BBJ. Of course, BASIS has been at the forefront of utilizing their own tools. So BBJ has been implemented, and in fact as implemented every time a new release of the product becomes available, it's beta tested and put into production before it's released to the worldwide market. We're going to look and see how we've replaced standard CUI modules from an off-the-shelf product with the GUI versions thereof. We're going to have a look at a trigger approach to implementing the link between the old modules and the new. We're going to see how we integrated the various pieces of custom solutions that we have at BASIS by utilizing Barista's capabilities. We'll have a look at an AddonSoftware lead-in program. More about that a bit later. And we'll look at the final product and discuss the next steps to enhancing the final solution. And then we'll open up the session to your questions. Firstly, let's have a look at BASIS's internal systems. We have a history, much like any other company, of some character user interface application code, and that really is primarily based on the heavily customized AddonSoftware version 6. So AddonSoftware version 6 is a packaged accounting solution, and that's been heavily customized to meet the needs of BASIS International. As a software company, we don't ship any physical product. We really deal with licensing of software nowadays. We in fact ship our product, make it available for download at no particular charge. It's really a case of purchasing the relevant license to run the version of the product that one requires. We're also going to look at some legacy TAOS, BASIS's old character-based 4GL tool, which is utilized to generate a serial number system, and we'll see the evolution of that, how it's moved to GUI. And then we'll look at the GUI modules, the web-deployed e-commerce application that's utilized by BASIS customers around the world to order and to maintain their information on their products. And we'll also look at the customized GUI solutions delivered around the old packaged AddonSoftware character version. And all of these, of course, are running on BBJ. So let's have a look at the deployment infrastructure here at BASIS. We take advantage of the capabilities of the modern operating systems. We're utilizing a version of Linux, whereby we utilize the live backup database structure. We have an active router, and constant file updates are taking place between it and a backup router. And once a week we'll do a manual failover to ensure that the backup router is fully configured and ready to take over should there be a failure of the primary router. So the database is therefore backed up at all times, taking advantage of the operating system's capability to deliver constant file updates between the two database versions. And then for the applications themselves, they run off load balance servers. Again, this is all a Linux deployment in our case. And then our clients may connect from all over the world and obviously internally within BASIS to the application. All of that running BBJ services. So let's look at the steps we took some 10 years back to convert from Pro 5 to BBJ. Firstly, on the data front, There was no conversion necessary for the XKeyed file structures. One merely places BBJ services in control of the data. We can convert to XKeyed or VKeyed file formats, for example invoking the convert XKeyed to XKeyed method of the BBJ file system object. That allows us to convert seamlessly from an XKeyed to an XKeyed file, and it automatically creates a backup of the original XKeyed file for us. Have a look at the documentation to see more information about how to implement this method on the BBJ file system object. And there's an accompanying Advantage article written back in, I think, 2002 that talks about the benefits and the methodology to make that conversion. So why would we do that conversion? Well, of course, there are some benefits to XKeyed file structures over the XKeyed file structure. There are no constraints on the number of keys, the number of key segments, or the size of the keys in an XKeyed file. Some other benefits are that it's more efficient, it's smaller, uses less space, and it's faster. Much faster with both SQL and read record, write record type processing. So what did we need to do to convert the packaged add-on software code? Firstly, we need to run the _keyword utility in Pro5. So it's a Pro5 utility. It works against a tokenized program set. We can modify the _keyword.dat file, which actually contains the replacements for the keywords that are used in BBJ. So for example, end will default to end underscore, and you may decide to use your own value of end underscore value rather than end underscore. So you're free to make those changes. Of course, the caveat is be sure that you're not utilizing that new variable name in your existing code. You need to then execute the BBJ compiler, BBJ CPL, against the Pro5 tokens. And the option that I've listed here is to specify a file list with the @ sign and the -e option for error output to be sent to a log file. And we've named that log file bbjcpl.err. And we've also used the switch -N that will actually suppress changing of any tokenized code. So this will merely give us a listing of the errors that BBJ CPL will discover when applied and when run against the file lists of programs. You could specify a particular directory to write the output and the various other switches. So we can then view the error log for errors, and generally those errors would have been pre-existing errors in Pro5, and perhaps Pro5 would only have picked those up upon execution. So this is what the _keyword Pro5 utility looks like, much like any of the other utility sets that are available with Pro5. So for our next steps, if it's GUI code, what did we do to convert our custom GUI code that we'd written perhaps in Visual Pro 5? We convert the .brc, the binary resource files, to ASCII resource files via the resbuild utility. So there, have a look at the documentation. There's a very simple set of options to do a wildcard run through of all your binary resource files and convert them to ASCII resource files. And read the documentation. Specifically look at the section that talks about converting to BBJ from earlier versions of Basis products, and also look at the specific documentation on BBJ that talks about language changes and enhancements to the product. The areas you'd also want to concern yourself with are the fact that BBJ is now a true three-tiered, multi-tiered architecture structure, and make sure that your configuration is set up appropriately. And then finally, of course, test the results. Test your BBJ code against the database. Let's have a closer look at those documentation links that we refer to. If we go under Products on the Basis homepage and go down to Documentation, we have a choice of looking at the documentation in various formats. I want to look at it in HTML. So if we click on that online version, that's the latest version that we post to the website. And you'll see this one is last revised on the 8th of February, earlier this month. So let's have a look at the BBJ specific documentation, and let's look at the converting to BBJ topic and converting to BBJ from earlier versions. And here we'll see some information relating to the steps that you can follow that we've just covered, and also some information relating to some items to watch out for. For example, if we look at item number 12 here, by default BBJ templates do not allow duplicate field names. It's rather hard to imagine how you would utilize that in a real world application, but if you wanted to mimic that facility and override that behavior, you can change the setops byte 8-bit to 08, and that will mimic the same functionality that you would experience in Pro 5. So have a look at that structure, in particular areas where we do take consideration of BBJ's full 3-tier architecture, and also there are some options to set GUI behavior that mimics older Visual Pro 5 non-standard grid behavior. So there's a link here to changes to earlier versions that'll talk more about the environments, the GUI components, the grid enhancements that I've just referred to, etc. So look out for that sort of functionality and be aware of some of these differences. Other areas that we've touched on, we spoke about Java in BBJ, just spoke about symbolic labels, and let's have a look at some of those. We mentioned the underscore keyword is going to look for reserved keywords. If we have a look at the documentation, these are the reserved keywords that have been added to the BBJ superset of BBX programming language. And we can also then have a link to the keyword underscore keyword utility, the keyword scan, and it'll tell you more about what is available. And let's also have a look at some of that other functionality that's available in BBJ. Let's look at the Java in BBJ. The client object tutorial, we'll see this is where we can find out how we can take advantage of BBJ's ability to wrap a Java component. So if BBJ's GUI functionality doesn't deliver what you require, you can always drop through to the Java functionality and add a J component, like a J split pane in this example, or if you want a layout manager, you can take advantage of that functionality from the Java world. If you're looking for specific information, let's just go back to the Basis website, and let's say we wanted to find out more about that method of the BBJ file system object where we wanted to convert to XKeyed file formats. So we could do a search from the Basis website, and over here we can see that that method is described to us. BBJ file system object and the method convert mKeyed to XKeyed. And if you cut and paste this sample code here and place it in the IDE, you can very quickly see what can be executed. So let's consider some of the benefits we gain from moving across to BBJ. What Java and BBJ extensions are there to Pro 5. It's a superset of the language. And in the character-based world, the most obvious enhancements are the introduction of symbolic labels, new command line features, the ability to run the Win console, do some debugging interactively in a GUI fashion from the console, the ability to look at command search and have command history, and of course web service consumption, really nice low-hanging fruit opportunities to enhance your existing character-based solution. We have access to the full range of the SQL syntax of the Basis SQL engine. And in the graphical world, we have many more GUI controls from when compared with Visual Pro 5, including the capability of running client-side objects using wrapped Java controls and features like multilingual spell checking. It has full object-oriented syntax and we're able to embed Java both on the server and on the client side. Here's a little screenshot of the Win console for dynamic editing and debugging, ability to set watch variables, to set breakpoints within your code. So pretty nice enhancements to the older console type debugging environment that you might be familiar with. Symbolic labels, far more intuitive, less liable for errors encountered when line numbers are changed or program is renumbered, and of course BBJ doesn't require any line numbering at all. So let's also consider some of the other enhancements we can now take advantage of that are available to us in BBJ. We have the BB Jasper utility, facilitates the presentation of any iReport generated or Jasper report writer generated reports that can be seamlessly embedded in your application. We have the ability to integrate fax Java library, so we can integrate faxing within our application. We can also take advantage of a Java library to do emailing. And of course BB Jabber and BB Translate are basis supplied utilities that handle language translation and handle localization of your program output in the GUI world. BB Invoker is a utility to invoke external applications, for example the default web browser, or basically any other application that you may wish to run on the desktop can be invoked from BB Invoker, of course including BBJ programs themselves. And we have the launch dock menu application, which is a very rich client-side application that gives you animated graphical program launching capabilities. So let's have a look at how we decided to take our transition to benefit from the new capabilities of the Barista version of AddonSoftware. How did we introduce these packaged GUI modules? In our case, we chose the least customized modules, General Ledger and Accounts Payable, and decided to integrate those to our customized character-based version of Addon 6. First point we wanted to do was compare the data dictionary and resolve any differences with the standard version 6. So we may have made some subtle changes to the General Ledger and the Accounts Payable. We wanted to make sure that that data dictionary was aligned with the new versions. We then applied the utility supplied by AddonSoftware called DataPort, which converted the data from the old version 6, formatted the data to the newer versions. So when we moved the AddonSoftware package to the GUI Barista version, we took advantage of the VKeyed file structures, and we also took the decision to normalize the data file structures, so it's necessary to run the data port. In your case, you may decide to put that off into a secondary step of your application conversion process. We then decided to take the approach of applying triggers to the transaction files and the General Ledger master table. We used the instead of write trigger. And what this allowed us to do was to maintain the older character-based code without any code changes whatsoever, but the old character-based code would now integrate into the new GUI versions. And the final point would be to do some customized changes to some output. Most specific amongst that in our accounts payable module was to accommodate our check printing format. So what were the interface points between the old modules and the new? Well, the old accounts receivable writes a General Ledger transaction file. So the trigger intercepts that write and redirects it to the new General Ledger. The old accounts receivable reads General Ledger master file information to determine the structure of the transaction. And the trigger now duplicates the changes to the old table. So the old code is entirely oblivious to the fact that we've replaced the accounts payable and the General Ledger with these new modules. And by utilizing the functionality of the trigger within the basis database management system, any of the writes that took place from the old AR to the new GL are intercepted and then redirected to the new GL. And we have two parameterized modes that we can run in, either in parallel and also we can enable logging. So these are modes that we've implemented within the trigger code. And no code changes were required to the old modules. So that means this was a very low risk change for us, very easy for us to test, the ability to run it in parallel to ensure that the old GL and the new GL would balance, that they would give the exact same results that we would expect. Let's look at that trigger code within the Basis IDE. I've got a directory here that I've titled Add-on Hybrid, and I've got 3 triggers in here. Let's double click on all of those to open them up in our editor pane. So we have the first one, second one, and then the third one. Let's open those up. Oh, by the way, there's some new functionality we've added to the Basis IDE. If we click on the little plus node next to the GLT04 trigger, we'll see that we have 2 labels, set sequence and handle error. Double click on that, it'll take the editor to that line and position the cursor at the point where that label is situated. But let's have a look at the GLT04 trigger. This is the one that is going to write to the daily detail file, write the transaction to the new version for the Barista add-on version. So what this does is it intercepts a write that's destined for the old transaction file, and then depending upon the flag that's been set, if it's set to parallel, it'll write it both to the old and the new. If the parallel flag is not set, it'll just redirect that and write it to the new. So I suppose of significance here, this is where our login is set. Is the login turned on? So depending upon that distinction, it'll log transactions. And this is where our parallel mode setting is. So based upon an STBL variable of parallel add-on, it'll set up and write the transaction to the old as well as the new. So having a look at this code, what's of particular significance is this line of code here that gets the write buffer that's passed to the string template. Beyond that, all the code that you see in the string template, in this trigger file, is standard business basic code. So any business basic code that you could expect to have accessible to you is available within the trigger logic. So down toward the end, we assign the value of the data and then build the short key, create the sequence number, and write the data to the file. And if in parallel mode again, we'll write it to the old file. So very simple, very straightforward. The GLT05 trigger, if we look at that logic, really this is a data file that's no longer in use in the Barista add-on version. So the only time that this trigger gets executed, that actually executes any code, is if the parallel flag is set or if the login is set. So over here, parallel add-on, if that's set, it'll write the transaction to the old GLT05 file. Let's have a look at the GLM01 trigger. This is the trigger that will fire a write to the old allocation code file that the old version 6 would expect to have available. So the old AR, accounts receivable, will be looking at the old general ledger allocation codes to determine the structure of the transaction, and so this trigger is necessary to keep those 2 in sync. The other one I wanted to show you is the lead-in program that we use to run the add-on 6 character-based code from within the Barista framework. Now you'll notice that this one has a suffix of .aon, and the Basis IDE does not recognize that as a BBJ program. Let's quickly fix that. If I go to Tools and Options, I can go to the IDE configuration. Let's expand the System node, and let's look at Object Types, which after all that's the MIME type that we're looking for. We want to set and specify that .aon is also a BBJ file type. If we select BBJ Files, you'll see over here extensions and MIME types. Let's click on the edit box and add AON to that list. We'll click OK, and we'll see back here in our file system view that the icon has changed for add-on ADX_version 6 lead-in. And if we double click on that to open it up in the editor, we see that we have all these labels available to us and specify the points in the program that are referenced. If we double click on the tab, we'll open that up in a single view, single window. So this is replicating some of the housekeeping work that the old character-based menu system used to perform. And so that's necessary in order to log and use the correct colors for the particular user that have been set, and the function key structures, etc. So this is available to our add-on partners. Once they log into their partner login on the AddonSoftware web page, they can download this code and take advantage of this structure. So our old methodology of running the mix of modules within Basis was to launch them from the launch dock, launch these applications from the launch dock via web start. And we had, as the various components, we have the newer Barista add-on software modules for AP and GL. We have the older character-based add-on software version 6 for the heavily customized AR modules. And we had some custom GUI code that we've written over the years to meet our business needs that have been written around the add-on software version 6 code. We also have our e-commerce web application utilized by our clients around the world to order Basis products online and get immediate fulfillment of their orders. And then we had some custom character-based code as well. I mentioned earlier the serial number tracking system, some of which has been converted into GUI as part of an earlier conversion project. All right, let's look at what our desktop looked like when we were running various pieces of our applications in-house. Now I'm going to double click on this Basis menu shortcut that's been created by Java Web Start. So when Java Web Start runs, it gives you the option to save a shortcut to your desktop. And double clicking on that, it'll go and check and make sure I have the latest version of the BBJ thin client and the latest version of the application. And then launches Launch Dock. And Launch Dock gives me this nice graphical menu program launcher, and we can select the character version of add-on. Let's start up a few of these: the GUI version, the e-commerce, the serial number system, and we'll also launch up Barista. So here's our e-commerce launching, here's our GUI add-on. So I'll log into each of these. Let's look at serial number system. I'll just select the next record, and we can see information relating to related serial numbers, SAM, etc. So this is a custom built GUI application written in BBJ, and I think some of it might use the old GUI builder, now form builder. Let's have a look at the e-commerce application that many of you will be familiar with. This allows us to check on information on serial numbers, purchase new serial numbers, maybe upgrade to the Basis product license. Let's scan next to bring up the serial numbers that I have on file. So this is normally run from the comfort of your administrator's desktop. They may want to combine a couple of licenses into a new license file type. Let's come back down here to this option. This is a Taos precursor to our GUI version of add-on that we wrote some code to manage licensing. And back down here is our character-based version of add-on, the package product. And if we look at accounts receivable, let's go into that, and let's go into maintenance and customer maintenance, and let's do a customer lookup, and we'll look up by name, and we'll look up Basis, and we'll select Basis Europe distribution, and let's do the name and address maintenance. So we have these various modules running all on the same screen, on the same desktop, and of course that looks a little bit messy. Let me log in to the Barista version, and this Barista version will have our new modules of AP and GL. And let's go and have a look at accounts payable. Let's select maintenance and let's look at some vendor maintenance, and we'll just browse through to the next couple of records, and there's one for national self-storage. So a little messy, but all the code is there. That's what it used to look like before we moved to the hybrid solution. So let's have a look at our integration steps of moving these two together to run more seamlessly in one environment. We wanted to mimic the AddonSoftware version 6 menu program. After all, it does various setups. It does certain checking and setting of the terminal ID, of the username and password, and we didn't really want to have to run in a separate menu program for our character modules and then a different menu program for our GUI modules. So we created the add-on version 6 lead-in program, which really mimicked the same functionality that the version 6 menu program did, but allowed us to run this from within the Barista framework. And thereafter we S-called the lead-in program and passing to it the one parameter required, which is the program name that we wish to execute from that add-on 6 version 6 menu program, and called this from the Barista menu. So now we see a seamless introduction of the character-based modules from within the GUI framework. Over here on the left we see add-on accounts receivable 6.0, and down below we see the sub-modules, the various components of that menu that are now launched, and over time we can slowly migrate those to GUI versions. Our next step was to integrate the custom GUI modules. So all applications are now launched from Barista, add-on version 6 CUI, the custom add-on version 6 CUI code, like the serial number tracking system, the AddonSoftware Barista module, the custom AddonSoftware version 6 GUI modules that we've written over the years, and our BCommerce GUI module can all be launched from within Barista. And they are launched by S-calling them from the Barista menu. So in our new hybrid structure, we've added some menu options here. We've added accounts receivable 6.0, that's our character-based version. And down below under the sub-menu, we have the option to click on customer maintenance. And this is going to launch our character-based version. But you'll notice that all the lead-in, login information, for example, is handled by our lead-in program. And we can do our name search again. Search by name, and let's select basis once more. And we'll select basis Europe distribution. And we could do name and address maintenance of that. So there it is, but it's now constrained by our MDI framework. And we can come back to our accounts payable menu. And so all of that functionality is available from that same menu. That serial number system I referred to early on, here it is. We can launch that as well, so we can add that to our Barista menu. So let's look at serial number maintenance as an example. And we also have our basis GUI functions, our GUI add-on, and our BCommerce. So those are both accessible from within the Barista menu. The same functionality we had beforehand, and we could have done a lead-in program here as well to obviate the need to do the login. And there we have access to, as I said, the same functionality that we'd experienced previously. But all of this is running in the same environment, and we can slowly start migrating, taking advantage perhaps of our dockout functionality, the ability to send output to a PDF or to a fax or to an email Let's have a quick look at an example of that. If we go and look at a report, so let's have a look at a report, vendor name and address listing. And we'll just select first to last of any permanent vendors. And that generates a dockout report. We'll see our progress bar on the bottom left, the report being generated. And up here we have the options of selecting the output type. So it could go to a system printer, to a PDF file, to an XML document, and to various other options, including faxing and emailing the report as an attachment. And so now we have an integrated solution, everything running off the Barista menu, so it's a complete hybrid solution. Over here on the left hand side we'll see the example of basis GUI functions, and there's our GUI add-on and our basis BCommerce, all launched from the same menu structure. So what did that open up for us? Why did we make this transition? Well, the opportunities are there for us to take advantage of the new technology. Deploying web applications, our GUI Barista modules are now available. iReport designed reports can be integrated into the solution. We can utilize functionality like data warehouse, trigger updates using triggers to update a data warehouse. We can look at stored procedures to deliver a simple web service. We can take advantage of the online backup capability of BBJ. And coming soon will be the browser user interface, the ability to deploy any of our BBJ GUI applications on a desktop browser or on a mobile device like an Apple iPhone. So again, what are some of the benefits of this approach? We now have the ability to deliver on an incremental upgrade path. We can implement a hybrid solution with AP and GL running in the newest Barista add-on, have custom modules upgraded incrementally as time and as needs dictate. And our next steps would be to take advantage perhaps of Barista's dockout for our email faxing and our archiving of reports, take advantage of Barista's maintenance forms, and there we can leverage the role-based security that's inherent within Barista to ensure that perhaps certain fields aren't accessible to particular users, or certain forms may not be acceptable to particular users. And our next steps may be that we have some very customized GUI code that doesn't lend itself to Barista's application framework, to Barista's data dictionary driven application framework. So we can look at some choices to plumb in some custom BBJ code. Barista may cater for 95 to 98% of your application needs, but you may need some custom BBJ code for a specialized purpose. It may be non-table or complex custom code that doesn't lend itself, as I said, to the Barista tool, and you can now plumb it into the Barista framework. You can leverage Barista's tool button menu structure, its look and feel. So we leverage the tool buttons and deliver a similar look and feel to Barista generated applications. We have tutorial code available, so just contact your sales representative and we can make that accessible for you to understand how you can easily plumb in your custom BBJ code to the Barista application framework. Here's a very simple example of a custom BBJ form and how that same form can be easily retrofitted and integrated to the Barista framework. So what are our benefits of this transitionary step? Very low risk, delivers a stepwise upgrade both for your own applications and your customers' applications. You get immediate gratification, immediately see the benefits of tools like Barista. You get a GUI solution on your platform of choice. There's very low cost of transition. Take it at your pace as your budget dictates, and in today's world that's a very important consideration to make sure that we deliver on the features and functions that are most required by the business to be more effective in the challenging economic climate that we find ourselves in. We get the benefits of WYSIWYG report writing from tools like iReport and the ability to integrate those solutions into our packaged offering. It's a phased implementation, and that really generally means that it's an affordable solution. So in summary, what have we covered today? We've looked at a review of Basis's internal systems. We've got a feel of how we moved from Pro 5 to BBJ, how we've replaced standard CUI modules of our prepackaged solution with the GUI versions. We've taken the trigger approach to minimize the impact on custom code, and we've integrated all these pieces with the Barista framework. We've delivered the AddonSoftware leading program to mimic the same functionality provided by the GUI menu structure, but replaced that by merging it into the Barista menu framework. And we've seen the final product, and we know what the next steps are that we can take to enhance our solution. Let's go back to the website and have a look at how we can get access to additional information that I've referred to in today's session. Let's look firstly at some of those BBJ utilities. So if we go back to documentation again and select the HTML documentation, BBJ specific documentation. Let's look at the language changes, and we see the BB utilities, and if we click on that we can see the BB Jabber utility, for example, where to find it, what it can do. There's a tutorial available, the BB Jasper report, description of what functionality is offered with the BB Jasper report utility, BB translations, etc. So again, utilize the documentation to take advantage of all of these features. But if we get back to the home page, some of the other topics that we've referred to today, you may find more information if you go to the archive of Java break sessions and have a look here. We can see information relating to some of those BBJ utilities. For example, using iReport, BB Jasper, and stored procedure order creation. There's a 28-minute video that describes that, painless report writing. Download some sample code. Look at the Q&A sessions, the online copy and live backup capabilities, and look at some of the Barista functionality. So all of that is available as a resource for you. If you look at solutions under video presentations, you'll see some additional resource on various concepts and features and functions. These are broken out under language interpreter, database management system, development tools, system administration, and some that talk specifically to the AddonSoftware modules that we've had a brief preview of today. So take advantage of the resources, the wealth of video resources that are available online, as well as the documentation to get more information. So at this stage, let's take your questions.